Complete story of Carnage, Clintar, Earth 616. After a battle with Styx where the Venom symbiote was presumed dead, its former host Eddie Brock was incarcerated in a prison for normal humans. His cellmate was Cletus Cassidy, a psychotic murderer serving 11 life sentences with whom he developed an antagonistic relationship. However, the Venom symbiote was not dead, merely incapacitated for a time, and after it recovered it sought Eddie out and rebonded with him, Venom departing to resume his quest for revenge against Spider-Man. However, the Venom symbiote had been about to spawn and left its offspring behind, the 999th of its lineage. The newborn symbiote sought out the nearest available host, latching onto Cassidy and entering into his body through a cut on his hand, where it amalgamated with his blood, transformed into a black and red monster. Cassidy dubbed himself Carnage and went on a months-long killing spree, leaving the message "Carnage rules" written in blood at the scene of each murder he committed. Eventually Carnage fought Spider-Man, and the wall crawler was defeated. 6. Realizing Carnage was another symbiotic-powered villain, Spider-Man enlisted the aid of Venom, who had retired to a deserted island. 7. To defeat Carnage. 8. After enlisting Venom's aid against Carnage, Spider-Man later used loud noises in an attempt to defeat both father and offspring. The Carnage symbiote was apparently killed, though it was eventually revealed that the symbiote had integrated itself into its host's blood, altering his physiology and metabolism. As a result, Cassidy could generate a copy of his symbiote from his blood whenever it was exposed to open air. Carnage teamed up with Shriek, Spider-Man's doppelganger, and later some other villains to go on a murder spree throughout New York. They were eventually stopped by Spider-Man, Venom, and a team of other superheroes. Following a confrontation with Venom, Cletus pretended to be in coma for some time when one of the invading symbiotes accidentally summoned to Earth by the Venom symbiote's primal scream came after him. Cletus tricked it into releasing the Carnage symbiote from his bloodstream and absorbed it. Noticing he was stronger than before, Carnage started to absorb the other symbiotes, growing to gargantuan sizes. In the process he was taken down by the combined efforts of Spider-Man, the Scarlet Spider, and Venom, whose symbiote screamed even louder to make all of the extra symbiotes commit suicide. The symbiote was seemingly killed for good when Venom, in an attempt to end the threat of Carnage once and for all, tore the symbiote from Cletus' body and devoured it. However, remnants of the symbiote that remained inside Cletus compelled him to travel to the negative zone, where he found a nigh-identical symbiote imprisoned in a capsule and bonded to it to become Carnage once more. This second symbiote was apparently assimilated by the remnants of the original in Cletus' bloodstream, as when the symbiote gave birth to Toxin, Venom claimed the spawn was his grandchild, and Claw later affirmed that the symbiote was the same one spawned by Venom. Despite the bond between the Carnage symbiote and its host being strong enough to make it nigh impossible to forcibly separate them, it has left Cassidy several times to find more powerful hosts and pursue its own goals. It has bonded with John Jameson, Spider-Man, forming Spider-Carnage, and the Silver Surfer, forming Carnage Cosmic, but each time it returned to Cassidy. Claw theorized its motive behind doing so was to become more powerful with each subsequent host, and to mold Cassidy into an ideal host. Eventually the symbiote and Cassidy met their apparent end while escaping the raft, a prison for super-powered people. Carnage was flown into space by the Sentry and ripped in half, but the symbiote survived by going dormant and putting Cletus into a coma. Carnage was returned to Earth after being found by Michael Hall, who extracted the symbiote from Cletus and used it to create prostheses and super soldiers, sustaining it by letting it feed off Shriek's hatred-inducing powers. The symbiote escaped by seizing control of Dr. Tanis Nieves' symbiote-derived prosthetic, bonded to her, and went to Hall Corporation headquarters. After failing to convince her to willingly bond to it, it separated from her to rejoin Cletus Cassidy, who had been given prosthetic legs. Carnage battled Iron Man and Spider-Man, utilizing the symbiote's newfound ability to control offshoots of itself to kill and assimilate the cyborg symbiotes of Hall's superguards, the Iron Rangers. Nieves' prosthesis was revealed to be a new spawn of Carnage, which turned her into a new symbiote called Scorn. Scorn forced Shriek to use her sonic attack to debilitate Carnage, who was revealed to have already escaped with Doppelganger. Under the symbiote's direction, Cletus journeyed to Doverton, Colorado, devouring the stock of a slaughterhouse to provide it additional biomass. Carnage subsequently infected the population with offshoots of the symbiote, proclaiming the city to be the new capital of a new symbiote sovereign state. When the Avengers arrived to stop him, Cletus infected Captain America, Hawkeye, The Thing, and Wolverine with the Carnage symbiote's offshoots, letting Spider-Man be the only hero left standing. After Scorn used a sonic weapon to separate Cletus from the Carnage symbiote, it also affected Venom and it left Cletus against an invalid Flash Thompson. The two rogue symbiotes started fighting using animals, the Carnage symbiote taking over a zoo of escaped animals. After the Carnage symbiote was defeated, its remaining biomass was captured by Scorn, while Cletus was taken into custody in a Quinjet. When Cletus was put into custody in the Thunderbolts Mountain, the symbiote biomass on his person was destroyed, though it used the traces of itself in his blood and DNA to regenerate. Cassidy was contacted by beings from the Microverse, who managed to see inside his mind and offer him a deal. They would give him the Microverse to get a whole new universe to kill in exchange for his services. After escaping to the Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center in Texas, Carnage and his new allies used new technology to escape to the Microverse, even after Scarlet Spider tried to stop them. Agent Venom, who was tracking him down, and Scarlet Spider followed Carnage into the Microverse where he betrayed his allies, who wanted to bring him to their master, Marquis Radu, in order to create a symbiotic army, and killed most of them when fighting the Scarlet Spider. Marquis Radu's army appeared and took Carnage prisoner along with Venom, who was captured along with his allies, the Enigma Force in another place. The symbiotes of Venom and Carnage were replicated and merged with the body banks to create a powerful army which would destroy the Microverse. Carnage took control over the symbiotic army and used it to escape to the regular universe, where he was finally defeated by the combined efforts of Venom and Scarlet Spider, and a special weapon given to them by the Enigma Force. After being lobotomized by the Scarlet Spider's stingers, Cletus was left in a catatonic state with the symbiote assuming full control of his body, although it was put in custody once more and sedated. While Cletus was in a catatonic state, the symbiote took full control over his body, but it didn't have any intelligence and instead rampaged, devouring everyone it came across when not subdued. The Wizard and Claw freed Carnage from prison, the Wizard intending to mind control Cletus into becoming his ally. After several failed attempts due to Cletus' brain damage, he decided to instead transfer the symbiote to Dr. Carl Malice, someone he could control. The symbiote was enraged at having been separated from Cletus, with only the Wizard's tenuous control over Malice keeping it at bay. With his new superior Carnage, the Wizard and Claw attacked the City Hall, only to find Superior Spider-Man waiting for them during the battle. The Wizard lost control over Carnage, and the symbiote gained full control over Malice. Carnage proceeded to stab Claw with a vibranium blade, but this caused a massive explosion which separated the symbiote from Malice. The symbiote bonded to the wizard and devoured Malice, and Spider-Man decided he could use the symbiote's preference for Cletus in order to make it abandon the wizard by taking Cassidy to the scene and containing the alien before it could merge with its original host. However, the mission failed, and Cletus became Carnage once more as the Spiderlings failed to contain the symbiote. Carnage rampaged through the scene until Claw, whose sonic body had been dispersed, managed to redirect lightning to Carnage and separate him from Cletus. Both beings were taken separately to custody. Unknown to Spider-Man, the symbiote's rebonding with Cletus fixed the villain's brain, who was now no longer lobotomized. Superior Spider-Man sent a chemically neutered sample of the symbiote to Morse Laboratories while Cletus was imprisoned at Kramer Penitentiary, where he was reintroduced into the general populace as a model prisoner. When Cletus was stabbed by a prisoner hired by his psychologist Dr. Jenner, who wanted to become the Carnage symbiote's new host, the main body of the symbiote weakened and perished. A portion of the sample sent to Morse Laboratories escaped and jumped from host to host, rejuvenating by consuming them from the inside out until it reached the prison. The symbiote vehemently refused Jenner's request and bonded to Cletus' corpse, resuscitating him and becoming Carnage once more. Following Cletus's blood, which contains its biomass, being spilled onto the pages of the Darkhold, the Carnage symbiote was altered by the Eldritch magic. As a result, it traded its vulnerability to sonics for a weakness to thonic magic and gained an altered version of its former ability to control others by infecting them with offshoots of itself. The symbiote's Eldritch augmentation was exploited when Victoria Montesi used the Darkhold to strip it from Cletus, who was subsequently taken into custody. Despite being separated from Cletus Cassidy, traces of the Carnage symbiote remained in his blood and unsuccessfully attempted to prevent a new symbiote from bonding to him. After the collapse of SHIELD, the Carnage symbiote was secured in the Lockbox, a privately run vault at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Agents Crane and Coleman infiltrated the lockbox and stole the symbiote, delivering it to their employer, Norman Osborn. After receiving the symbiote, Osborn bonded with it to become the new Carnage, hoping it would be the key to regaining his Green Goblin persona. While the symbiote initially seized control of him, Norman offered to teach it more nuanced and sadistic ways to kill, an offer the symbiote eagerly accepted. The symbiote turned over control to its new host, restoring his appearance and purging his body of the nanites, preventing him from augmenting himself with goblin formula. Osborn used the symbiote to kill Phil Urich, and after pretending to be mortally wounded in a rematch against Spider-Man as the Green Goblin, unveiled his new partner by transforming into the monstrous Red Goblin. Osborn used the symbiote to great effect, incapacitating Spider-Man's allies and loved ones, and bonding a portion of it to his grandson Normie Osborn to turn him into the Goblin Child. When Spider-Man taunted him by saying that Carnage, Cletus Cassidy, would get the credit for his death, Osborn ripped the symbiote off, and Spider-Man immolated it when it tried to rebond to him. Being in contact with the symbiote at the moment of its death destroyed Osborn's psyche, making him believe that he was Cletus Cassidy and that Spider-Man was Norman Osborn. The part of it that survived in the Goblin Child was subsequently extracted by Alchemax and placed into containment to be studied, though not all of it was removed. Following the death of the Poison Queen, the poison that had consumed Cletus shattered to reveal him somehow restored to humanity. As gravity took hold, the remnants of the Carnage Symbiote inside his body were able to regenerate and unsuccessfully attempted to use its Darkhold augmentations to shield him from the atmospheric re-entry. Cletus' body was collected by an apocalyptic cult worshipping the Dark Elder god Null, who had created the symbiotes, with the intent of turning him into Null's prophet and avatar. After the Grendel symbiote bonded to Cletus, the Carnage symbiote absorbed it alongside a codex, trace remnants of symbiote biomass it had left behind in Tanis Niev's body, rejuvenating and empowering itself.